Imagine a lantern-lit courtyard in Old Edo, where the sound of a single shamisen floats across the silence of midnight. A young samurai, bound by loyalty to his lord and family, stands poised beneath the fluttering light. In that hushed moment, the weight of centuries-old tradition presses down on him. Yet his heart, drawn to a forbidden love, refuses to be silenced. This tension, between a rigid code of honor and the irresistible pull of human desire, lies at the heart of the samurai's most secret romances. The spark of passion could topple a warrior's reputation and even endanger his life. Still, stories of clandestine affection found their way into hushed rumors, handwritten poems, and the diaries of those who dared to defy the rules. To grasp why these hidden affairs held such danger, it helps to remember that the samurai class emerged as both protectors and symbols of moral rectitude. Their code, often referred to as Bushido, demanded loyalty, self-discipline, and a willingness to sacrifice personal desire for the sake of duty. Marriage, for many, was a pragmatic alliance arranged to ensure political ties or fortify one's social standing. True romance, especially one that stepped outside accepted norms, threatened everything the samurai represented. Yet human hearts have never been easily tamed, and the strict path of duty could not extinguish longing. Consider, for instance, the predicament of a low-ranking samurai who rose through the ranks, only to find himself overwhelmed by emotion for a woman of higher status. The chasm between them was as formidable as any castle wall. Samurai society prized order and hierarchy, so a relationship across ranks carried deep social stigma. The lovers faced daunting hurdles: fierce disapproval from their families, fear of punishment by their clan, and the knowledge that any misstep could lead to loss of honor. And yet these unions did happen, quietly, cautiously, like a hidden flame nurtured in the dark. Some accounts even speak of warriors who found their hearts captured by those entirely outside the samurai class. During the Edo period, townspeople, courtesans, or performers lived in a realm apart. For a high-born warrior, slipping into that world was an act fraught with risk. Despite the intense secrecy required, stories abounded of samurai who ventured into nightlife districts, disguised in less conspicuous clothing, to meet a beloved. In the hush of tatami rooms, far from the watchful eyes of their retainers, these men tasted the freedom to express emotions otherwise smothered by social constraints. Such hidden romances were never purely about excitement or scandal. They spoke to the deepest human yearnings for authenticity and connection. Samurai were men of steel-like resolve, trained to place their mission above all else. Yet within them beat hearts capable of affection, tenderness, and vulnerability. When circumstances made it impossible for them to love openly, many chose to do so in secret. Love letters, often inscribed with elegant calligraphy, became cherished tokens. In a society where reading emotions on the surface was not always safe, every brushstroke told a tale of longing, devotion, and hope. The threat of discovery added an edge of danger that both frightened and thrilled. For those who served powerful lords, a scandalous affair risked disgrace not just for themselves, but for the clan as a whole. Punishment could be swift and brutal, ranging from house arrest to forced seppuku, the ritual act of suicide. Yet these warriors, trained to face death in battle, sometimes showed the same resolve when it came to affairs of the heart. Their determination to pursue forbidden love, despite the possibility of catastrophe, lends these stories an air of tragic beauty. And then there were political marriages, arranged to forge alliances or preserve peace among feudal domains. For many samurai, such unions lacked true emotional warmth. Yet occasionally, there emerged a genuine bond of affection, making the relationship doubly precarious if it threatened some family strategy. When external pressures demanded that the couple appear cold or indifferent, Their true feelings would flicker behind a carefully maintained facade. Secret meetings, stolen conversations, and subtle gestures became lifelines, revealing that even rigid formalities could not imprison a sincere attachment. Beyond the tales of personal sacrifice, these hidden love stories shed light on an aspect of the samurai world that is often overlooked. We tend to picture warriors in armor, swords flashing, loyal to a fault. Yet behind the stark discipline lay a complex emotional landscape. The very weight of samurai expectations made any transgression all the more dramatic. That gap between outward composure and inward passion serves as the stage for a romance truly worthy of legend. In the chapters ahead, we will uncover some of the most poignant examples of these forbidden loves. Through names that might not appear in official chronicles, we'll discover the lengths to which these men, and sometimes the women they cherished, were willing to go. Their clandestine journeys involved secret messengers, concealed doorways, and coded communications, all to protect something as fragile as a heartbeat. Each hidden relationship adds depth to our understanding of Bushido itself, reminding us that true honor sometimes demands the courage to embrace humanity in all its forms. Let's pause here to reflect on the hush that surrounds these unsanctioned romances. In a world defined by loyalty and order, love emerges as both an irresistible force and a perilous threat. This tension creates stories that are more human than any legend, reminding us that even the most disciplined souls can be captivated by the warm glow of devotion, no matter how strictly the gates are barred. They say that the strict corridors of a samurai mansion could amplify even the quietest whisper of scandal. Imagine the hush that fell whenever rumors of a forbidden liaison surfaced. Servants, bound by loyalty yet brimming with curiosity, would exchange nervous glances. In an era when reputation was everything, even suspicion could ruin an entire household. Yet despite these perils, secret romances persisted. Many took place under cover of darkness, when the demands of the day melted into moonlight, and warriors briefly shed the weight of obligation to chase the promise of a genuine bond. Among the tales that have come down to us, there is one involving a young retainer who served a powerful daimyo. Though his lord's family had arranged a marriage for him, his heart had already been captured by a woman of the merchant class, someone his superiors considered beneath his station. Their encounters, filled with whispered endearments and hurried embraces, took place in a modest room behind her family's shop. The risk was tremendous. If discovered, he could lose his position and bring shame upon not only himself, but his entire clan. Yet nothing could quell his devotion. Some say he wrote poems for her in the margins of scrolls he was meant to deliver, each line a coded message that only she could decipher. For months, this extraordinary dedication remained hidden. And while the official records never mention the outcome of their love, oral tradition suggests they may have fled together, leaving behind a life that promised them status, but denied them the freedom to choose each other openly. Other stories revolve around marriages of convenience, sealed not by affection, but by alliances. Sometimes these arrangements involved two individuals who had never even met before their wedding day. Duty demanded that they respect each other, yet true love could prove elusive. In certain cases, affection unexpectedly blossomed. In others, one or both partners turned to confidants outside the marriage to ease their loneliness. This, too, was a form of forbidden love. The samurai wife, carefully instructed to support her husband's ambitions, might find herself drawn to someone who treated her as more than just a bridge between families. Any hint of such impropriety could lead to her being sent back to her father's house in disgrace or worse. Yet these hidden connections happened, often discovered only through diaries uncovered generations later. The quiet confessions in those pages, written with a careful hand, now lend a voice to emotions that once thrived in secret. In certain fabled accounts, the temple courtyards played host to hidden assignations. A samurai would visit under the pretense of offering prayers, while a lover entered from a side gate, cloaked in anonymity. Monks, sworn to preserve the sanctity of their grounds, might notice fleeting glances or detect unusual tension in the air, but they often held their silence. Temples were places of spiritual reflection, but for those star-crossed warriors and their partners, they could also be sanctuaries of stolen time. Cherry blossoms became silent witnesses, drifting gently onto the shoulders of lovers who dared to stand too close to each other in the dappled moonlight. Yet not all such tales ended in tragedy. One particularly intriguing story tells of a samurai who inherited a small domain on the outskirts of Edo. Beloved by his retainers for his fairness and kindness, he nonetheless harbored a secret. He had fallen for the daughter of a farmer who visited the domain's storehouses to deliver fresh produce. Over several seasons, they formed a bond that transcended social barriers. Realizing the futility of fighting against entrenched norms, the samurai made a bold decision. He proposed a match, not in the usual fashion of sending intermediaries, but by approaching her family directly. Though the outcry among his advisors was fierce, he stood firm. He argued that true virtue lay not only in fulfilling duty but in honoring personal integrity. Astonishingly, his rank and goodwill prevailed. He convinced those in power to grant permission for the union, turning what might have been a scandal into a local legend. Even centuries later, records suggest that this samurai's benevolent governance earned him a place in his people's hearts, his unconventional marriage only enhancing his reputation as a just and courageous ruler. Still, such happy outcomes were rare. More often, the threads of romance were woven in secret and severed in sorrow. Poetry remained one of the few safe outlets for expressing passion. Samurai were trained not only in swordsmanship but also in calligraphy and literature, and many channeled their innermost desires into exquisite verse. These poems, heavy with longing, sometimes hinted at clandestine meetings behind screened doors. If discovered, they could raise suspicions. But when carefully concealed or shared only with trusted friends, they allowed the heart's yearning to take shape. Reading these verses today, one senses the pain of separation and the overwhelming surge of emotions that fueled these covert affairs. It's a reminder that love can be as sharp as any blade and just as impossible to control. While it's easy to romanticize these affairs, they brought real danger. Losing honor in samurai society could mean financial ruin, exile, or even death. A single misstep could condemn not only the lovers themselves, but their families and loyal subordinates. In this crucible, every glance, every word spoken behind closed doors, and every faint rustle of fabric carried monumental weight. The emotional intensity of these relationships thus soared to dramatic heights, and each discreet encounter crackled with anticipation. When a samurai said goodbye to his beloved, he was saying goodbye perhaps forever, aware that a stray rumor or a vengeful rival could tear them apart. Yet it's precisely this knife-edge tension that continues to fascinate. The code of Bushido was not just about martial prowess, but also about moral discipline. Forbidden love challenged that discipline in the most fundamental way, pitting human need against the mandates of a carefully structured society. The greatest conflict wasn't always a battlefield engagement. Often, it was the struggle within, between loyalty to one's clan and the longing that tugged at the soul. In these struggles, we see the universal paradox of desire. The more it is denied, the brighter it sometimes burns. In the overlapping worlds of courtly ritual and warrior valor, samurai stories often center on epic battles and unwavering loyalty. Yet beneath those layers lay hidden, deeply personal choices. When faced with the rigid demands of tradition, how far could a warrior bend before losing his sense of self? Forbidden romance tested the boundaries of identity as much as social standing. A diligent retainer by day could become a restless lover by night, drawn into secret encounters that risked everything. The same resolve that carried him into battle might falter before the tender vulnerability of affection. Some tales mention bonds forming between martial arts masters and their students, devotion that could evolve into something more profound. In an age when outward displays of affection were strictly regulated, a shared passion for swordsmanship sometimes lit a different spark. Even so, the question of loyalty remained. Should they serve the code or their feelings? Others simply abandoned their rank. Masterless samurai, ronin, are usually thought of as wanderers seeking new patrons or revenge. But there were also those who gave up their status for love, choosing a life free from the chains of class. Though rare, such stories show that true integrity can sometimes manifest in defiance rather than obedience. This fascination with hidden affairs isn't mere fantasy. It highlights a timeless truth. No code, however revered, can fully suppress the depths of human emotion. Diaries, poems, and whispered tales point to love persisting even under harsh constraints. They remind us that, behind every warrior's stern exterior, a human heart beats with the desire for warmth and connection. From the hush of a midnight corridor to the pale glow of a paper lantern, these narratives suggest that the pulse of forbidden love never truly fades. Centuries later, we still sense its echo, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in a world bounded by unyielding tradition. The presence of these hidden relationships rippled beyond the lovers themselves. Clan politics, already intricate, could become even more fraught when private affairs threatened public alliances. A single rumor could stoke rivalries among retainers, each hoping to gain favor with the Lord by exposing weakness in another's household. At times, entire family branches were drawn into the turmoil, each maneuvering to either conceal or reveal the truth to serve their own ends. In this tangled web, a samurai who sought only a moment of genuine connection might find himself ensnared in a political minefield. Yet paradoxically, it was often the secrecy that intensified the lovers' bond. Knowing that discovery might spell disaster, they clung more fiercely to fleeting moments of intimacy. The sound of a bamboo flute at dusk or the scattering of plum blossoms on the wind could become symbols of hope, brief reminders that even under suffocating constraints, beauty and joy could still be found. In such a climate, the smallest act of devotion shimmered with heightened significance. Though history's spotlight tends to favor dramatic acts of valor, letters and diaries from the Edo period confirm how frequently love intersected with the samurai ethos. Many a seasoned warrior could quote poetry with ease, using it to communicate nuanced feelings that direct speech could not safely convey. In some cases, an old poem about moonlit nights on the ancient capital's riverbanks served as a veiled declaration of affection. To an untrained eye, it was merely a refined piece of literature. To two souls bound by secrecy, it was a coded promise to endure. These stories also illuminate the unique role women played within the samurai domain. Contrary to the idea that they were always silent and submissive, some samurai wives, daughters, or concubines wielded influence in subtle ways. A clever woman could orchestrate meetings under the guise of social gatherings, arrange for the exchange of tokens, or even broker peace between conflicting families, all while preserving her modest public image. Her motivations might stem from personal loyalty, romantic interest, or a desire to maintain stability within the household. In any event, she demonstrated that the boundaries of power were not always drawn where official records would have us believe. Meanwhile, the city of Edo itself, bustling with merchants, artisans, and entertainers, provided a complex stage for clandestine liaisons. Samurai who arrived from provincial domains found themselves seduced by the capital's nightlife, a swirl of tea houses, kabuki theaters, and back-alley establishments that offered an escape from rigid protocol. The convergence of people from different walks of life allowed for encounters unlikely to occur back home. Among the crush of bodies crossing a crowded bridge or gathering at a riverside festival, a samurai might lock eyes with someone who, by birth, he was never meant to meet. A brief glimpse could lead to stolen conversations in the lantern-lit corners of Edo's pleasure quarters. Within these walled enclaves of entertainment, the strict rules governing samurai conduct were momentarily held at bay, though never entirely forgotten. Even in moments of whispered delight, a warrior remained cognizant of the watchers in the shadows, the spies loyal to his lord, or the wrathful fiancé who might one day learn of his indiscretion. It was in these dimly lit spaces that the spark of love could ignite into a blaze of longing, defying the boundaries of class and station. Yet every borrowed hour had to yield eventually to the pressures of the dawn. Some samurai, tormented by the guilt of betraying obligations, ended their affairs abruptly, letting heartbreak mingle with resignation. Others risked everything for one final act of devotion. A letter slipped under a door, a gift of embroidered silk, or even an elopement that cast them adrift in an unforgiving world. Each choice carried a weight as heavy as the sword at a warrior's side. Honor was never a simple, linear concept. It was shaped by an ever-shifting interplay of duty, reputation, and personal conviction. In the faint morning light, a samurai might redon his austere exterior, burying memories of secret passion behind a mask of composure. Perhaps he would train harder than ever, as though rigorous discipline could chase away the specter of emotion. Or perhaps he would immerse himself in administrative tasks for his domain, carefully sidestepping any conversation that might lead to prying questions. In this cyclical dance of concealment and revelation, the human heart remained both fragile and unbreakable, fueling tales that would endure long after the era of the samurai had passed. Though the rigid structure of samurai society might seem alien to modern eyes, these stories of forbidden love hold echoes that even audiences in America can appreciate. There is something universal in the tension between personal longing and the pressures of conformity. For every warrior poised at the edge of duty and desire, we can glimpse a reflection of struggles that transcend culture and time. Imagine a small provincial castle, surrounded by fields that shimmer emerald green in spring. The local daimyo, hoping to strengthen ties with a neighboring clan, arranges for his daughter to wed a samurai renowned for his military prowess. Though she bows to this plan, her heart already belongs to someone else, a childhood friend who, due to an unfortunate twist of fate, is now a mere artisan. Against all reason, they continue to exchange subtle tokens: a hand-stitched cloth, a poem accompanied by pressed wildflowers. At dusk, when the household quiets, they stand on opposite sides of a narrow moat, each catching a glimpse of the other in the fading light. Their restraint is agonizing, yet they cling to even the smallest chance of an unguarded moment. Each night, the possibility of being discovered gnaws at them, yet the hope of a single shared word spurs them on. Such was the landscape of love for countless individuals consigned to strict social boxes. Even among the samurai themselves, not everyone shared the same degree of devotion to convention. Some high-ranking lords were known to indulge in flings that, while scandalous, remained protected by their exalted position. Lesser samurai, meanwhile, could face severe penalties for the same transgression. The result was a stratified world in which, ironically, the greatest freedom often belonged to those at the very top, while those of humble station had to guard their secrets with painstaking care. In such an environment, the yearning for genuine connection swelled like an underground spring, invisible yet insistent, ready to burst forth at the slightest fissure. While the stories of doomed lovers might dominate our imagination, not all hidden romances ended in sorrow. In certain cases, families chose to bend tradition, recognizing that mutual affection could lead to a stronger alliance than a purely transactional marriage. These rare decisions required bold negotiation, often behind closed doors. Occasionally, a wise elder, recalling regrets from their own past, might advocate for a union forged from sincerity rather than calculation. Whether these appeals succeeded depended on the climate of the times and on the willingness of those involved to endure the inevitable whispers of scandal. Yet, cultural expectation weighed heavily on women who found themselves caught between duty and emotion. For a samurai's daughter, raised to project grace and fidelity, any visible breach of decorum risked her entire family's standing. She might endure years of inner turmoil, choosing silence for the sake of honor. A single misstep, an unguarded remark, a letter discovered by prying eyes, could unravel everything she had been taught to protect. In this sense, the constraints of Bushido rested not only on the shoulders of men, but also on the hearts of women, requiring them to display the same fortitude in matters of the spirit as their husbands or fathers did on the battlefield. And then there were the children born of these clandestine unions, innocent legacies of a love the world refused to sanction. Some were quietly adopted into the samurai's household, their parentage shrouded in carefully woven fictions. Others were raised by relatives or placed in the care of temples, each carrying a lineage both exalting and condemning. Years later, as they grew and searched for their identities, they might uncover half-told tales of secret vows. These children stood as living testaments to the lengths some samurai would go in pursuit of a bond that transcended social restraints. In the face of scandal, their very existence became a silent testament to the enduring power of love. Such stories persist because they resonate far beyond the centuries in which they occurred. For modern viewers fascinated by the samurai code, it may be surprising to learn how often the strongest adversary a warrior faced was not an external foe, but the pull of his own heart. The dualities of this world, where a blade might enforce both justice and oppression, where a marriage could unite families yet divide souls, remind us that history is neither simple nor static. The most captivating tales often lie in the shadows of grand battles and political intrigue, revealing how real people struggled, sacrificed, and sometimes triumphed in the name of affection. In these hidden chronicles, we find an unexpected mirror. The tension between societal expectation and individual desire is universal, linking the corridors of Edo-era castles to countless other times and places. Each love story, no matter how clandestine, reveals the unquenchable human spirit. A spirit that, when cornered by convention, finds ever more inventive ways to blossom. And so we continue to look back, drawn by the hope and heartbreak etched into the samurai's clandestine romances, certain that within these age-old secrets lies a truth that resonates across oceans and generations. Even in periods when peace reigned and swords were left to gather dust, the spirit of the samurai remained tethered to duty, tradition, and unbending codes of behavior. It was amid such calm, ironically, that clandestine affairs often thrived. The absence of open warfare did not soften the internal battles that tormented men and women whose affections defied social norms. True courage in these instances was found not in the clamor of the battlefield, but in the quiet moments when a warrior dared to hold fast to love despite the threat of disgrace. Across the ocean of years, we see how these forbidden liaisons influenced not just personal fates, but the broader cultural tapestry. Plays, novels, and woodblock prints sometimes alluded to tragic or triumphant love stories in coded form, ensuring that even if society refused to openly acknowledge such passions, art could immortalize them. By the twilight of the Tokugawa era, Japan was on the brink of transformation. Western influence would soon flood the country, reshaping everything from military structure to the very concept of individual liberty. With those changes came new conversations about marriage, class, and personal choice. Yet the legacy of earlier romances persisted in quiet corners of memory, reminding the newly modernized society that once, long ago, hearts had risked all for a fleeting chance at happiness. These sagas of secret devotion offer a fresh perspective on the samurai. Far from being emotionless warriors, they were individuals navigating constricting rules with the same range of human feelings found in any era or culture. For viewers in America, or anywhere else who picture the samurai solely in armor, these stories provide a glimpse behind that polished facade. Yes, they fought with skill and discipline when called upon, but they could also find themselves hopelessly entangled in matters of the heart, grappling with doubts, regrets, and hopes just like any of us. Love, after all, acknowledges no rank. It seizes whom it will. Though centuries have passed, the echo of these romances lingers. Traveling through historical accounts or discovering stray references in dusty archives, one senses the unstoppable force that propelled these men and women. Even in an era when so much seemed predetermined by birth and class, they discovered, time and again, that passion can motivate choices as irrevocable as they are extraordinary. Occasionally, forbidden love yielded unexpected blessings, reunited families or wiser leaders who recognized that emotion could unite people more profoundly than any political contract. Other times it brought nothing but sorrow, severed ties, and the haunting remorse of what might have been. However these tales ended, they remind us that no society, however rigid, can fully suppress the spark of human connection. In this recognition lies the true power of samurai romance stories. By daring to love when it seemed impossible, these clandestine couples asserted their own humanity against a backdrop of uncompromising tradition. Their courage invites us across time and culture to consider whether we too might find the resolve to follow our hearts, even when the path is fraught with uncertainty. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up.